Thanks everyone for coming here. I can see we have 22 participants, and hopefully in today's lecture and today's talk, we will learn a little bit more about NVivo. Some of you might have knowledge how to work with NVivo and Lit Review. So I have 1 hour approximately. So within 1 hour, I'll try to cover some of the basics of Lit Review, and also I'll give you some demo. How should you work with NVivo? So in terms of the expectation, I would say that the 1 hour might not be enough for everyone, because I assume that if you don't have any prior knowledge of NVivo, it might be a bit difficult to understand. However, I think this is an easy software. So I'll give you the very basics. So hopefully, if you watch that demo, what I'm going to show you, you will be able to try this software out. So what I would like to say in today's lecture, that I'm part of the School of Design, as some of you might know that one. So I'm the HDR coordinator for the School of Design. So I have a kind of diverse background in terms of my, let's say, academic and research work. So mostly I do work as a design researcher and work with children, older adults, and also teach at the department, and mostly those teaching are related to human interaction with the technology or product. And also I have a couple of PhD students who are also working along the line, and I have around 4 students who graduated in recent years. So as I said before, that in today's lecture or today's talk, I'll be talking more about the Lit Review. So, and there are different types of Lit Review you might know, but in today's lecture, mostly we'll be talking about the traditional review. However, I'll be also touching some of the issues regarding systematic review, scoping review. And the reason is that as a PhD students or early career researcher, you might be encountering some published papers which are talking about the systematic review or scoping review. So it's good to know what the differences are and how do you analyze the data using the NVivo if you have to conduct any of those reviews. So depending on the discipline that you are, so I think in most disciplines, they also want to conduct Lit Review. It could be part of your PhD thesis, could be part of a particular chapter of the thesis which you want to publish. So what we want Lit Review is basically the synthesized form of existing knowledge, what is already out there, already been published. So the main issue is here that we have to critically appraise those literature. So as a PhD student, when you start at the beginning, is a bit hard because we don't know exactly which one to include, which one to exclude. However, I think what is important as a PhD student to consider, what new insights am I going to deliver out of those syntheses? So that's very important. And you might have heard many times that, okay, conduct a traditional review. Again, it depends on your supervisor, also depends on the discipline that you are in. Some disciplines, especially in health sciences, they always conduct systematic review, yeah, and as a part of their PhD. But in other discipline, let's say in our design field, we don't conduct actually systematic review very often. For the PhD thesis, mostly we focus on the traditional review, and let's say maybe 1 or 2% students might conduct a scoping review. So what is important here, doesn't matter actually what type of review you conduct. The main issue is whether you are conducting in a particular way, which is like say reproducible. And the other thing is the rigor, like say what you want to conduct, what have you conducted? Are those conclusion, whatever you are drawing from those review, whether people can rely on it, they can trust on it. Okay, something has been done reliably, so we can trust what somebody has done. We can take this knowledge and apply for policy or other places, other resources. So in a PhD thesis, what we need always, we need a Lit Review as a separate chapter. I think most of you already know that one. However, in a PhD thesis, we also conduct, a couple of studies. For every studies that we conduct, so we also need to contextualize, our findings, contextualize, even motivate our research questions. So in every place, we need to conduct lit review. So lit review could be used as a kind of separate chapter, or it could be utilized, in other chapters where you have to actually motivate your research questions. And at the beginning of your PhD thesis, when you write a proposal, or in your 3-month pre-COC or 1-year COC, report, you mostly look at the rationale or the gaps, what you have. But in order to talk about the gaps, you also need to justify with the relevant literature. And third thing is contribution. If you have conducted the research, you say, okay, I found something unique. And then if you want to say something about the contributions, you need to talk about your, compare your contributions with existing literature. So that's why we need literature review throughout the PhD project. So as you can see here, however, the specific chapter, where we call lit review chapter, most of the time is like 10 to 20,000 words, depending on the discipline. But that is the heaviest chapter you will be writing. And the other students might be focusing more on the method chapter. Maybe you are reviewing literature to synthesize, the existing methods and try to justify why you have selected a particular method for your research. So as you have seen here, I'm talking about a bit more traditional review, which is most of the students will be doing all over the world as a part of their PhD thesis. And also traditional review, which is a bit easier to conduct because you have more control, and most of the time, as a single researcher, you would be able to do that. And the selection of the materials, what type of paper am I going to include in my thesis, in my review, which is own decision. Okay, maybe I have found a particular topic, so I'll be choosing some references from this database or that databases, which is a bit more, say, under your control. So you can decide what type of literature you would like to collect. And of course, there are kind of upside and downside, because the downside, I would say that, okay, there might be some bias, the way that you conduct lit review. And the upside is that most of the time you can't publish this one. So what happens that whatever you have been reading from published literature, so you see that, okay, something has been published because those have been done very rigorously, or it could be based on some systematic approach. So some of the traditional reviews are not, or never will be able to publish, or people don't get any kind of say, outcome out of that, because those will be most of the time neglected. So what we need actually kind of both. So as a PhD student, actually you can decide what type of lit review you are going to conduct. But if your objective is to publish something in a high quality journal, then you need some sort of systematic approach. That's what I want to tell everyone. Without that approach, you won't be published the lit review. However, I think if you don't conduct a PhD by publications, so you don't need to publish your lit review, but some students might be interested in publishing. So if you want to publish something, check your discipline guidelines, where you can publish the lit review. But in my personal case, all of my PhD students, more or less, they actually publish lit review, because I think this is a good opportunity in your first year to publish something out of your, initial work, and also get, kind of respect from the community that, okay, you have done some synthesis of literature and that should be published. And also literature review could be published also in tier 1, tier 2 journals, which is good as well. And if you want to get some examples, some health sciences people, also some design people as well, they have published actually quite a number of lit review in the tier 1 and 2 journals. So in this talk, I won't be touching systematic review, but if anyone is interested in, I know some of you might know that one. So there are some guidelines, how can you conduct systematic review? And you might encounter some paper from your discipline that somebody has conducted systematic review. But as I said before, this is a gold standard to conduct, very thorough review. If anyone would be interested in, you can check that particular link that would help you to conduct such a systematic review. So what I said before actually in my talk, that literature review could happen anywhere in your thesis. So as mostly you'll be focusing on your thesis, so you could say that in your intro chapter and your dedicated literature review chapter, and also even if you do PhD paper publications, so definitely the examiner wants you to see that you have published something out of your literature review. Also in the discussion chapter as well. So there you can see where lit review could happen. Yeah. So you might not notice it in that way because most of you might be familiar with writing a big, thick lit review as a part of your PhD thesis. However, as I said before, that your lit review will be everywhere throughout the thesis. Maybe smaller in the other chapters. It'll be a bit more thicker in the lit review chapter. But it could be a review article, could be policy document, or in a research proposal. Students who are in the first year, actually one of the requirements from the Swinburne is that you have to write a lit review, shorter review for the 3-month proposal. And when you prepare your COC report, you need to kind of, the longer, lit review as a part of your COC. So I think it doesn't matter actually what type of lit review you conduct. What is more important here, what I actually miss with the students, what they most of the time forget, you need a research question. What am I going to achieve out of the lit review? So that will help you to get focused, because you'll be dealing with a lot of secondary data, electronic databases you'll be searching, but that search should be guided by the questions that you have. That's very important, I think, from the very beginning. What am I going to know? So now it also takes some sort of experience, how you deal with it. For example, if it is the big part of your thesis that you are conducting a lit review as a separate chapter, so I would say that you always should have a central question and couple of sub-questions. On the other hand, if you say, okay, I'm doing a small lit review as a part of my discussion chapter, in that case, without any question, it would be fine. Yeah. But if you conduct as a central, chapter, so you should also have some central and some sub-questions. Yeah. That will guide your research. That will guide your the literature search in those electronic databases. Yeah. And one of the things you might also know that whenever we talk about research questions, we want to measure it so that it's doable, it's answerable, so we can answer the question. So it should not be that vague. It should not be too broad. So there are some good books how we can actually create good research questions. One of them is called The Craft of Research. If you know that book, so please have a look at the book. It's an excellent book. You can see how can you create the answerable questions. I'm not going over those things now, but what I'm trying to say that come up with some questions, talk to your supervisor, and then you can also see, okay, how can you answer the questions? And then all your literature review, all your analysis should be revolving around those questions. So then the databases, again, it depends on the discipline. As I said, if you are coming from a particular discipline, you should know actually which databases are relevant for your discipline. So, but we have a range of databases you could look for. So get to know your discipline database and databases. Also, I think if you are like undertaking a big lit review, it's always good to talk to the librarians. They are a specialist, yeah, special like a knowledge they have. So they can provide you the guidance how to conduct thorough search in electronic databases. It's always good, but what I'm saying that is not for the suggestion. For example, some journals, they explicitly ask, have you consulted with any librarians or expert? So that is actually the part of the process. Yeah. So if you think you are going to publish something and doing something great, so always do check with your librarians. Yeah. And the third thing, what we use at Swinburne most of the time is EndNote for managing those references. But I'm not saying that EndNote is the only one thing. You could use other software, for example, ReferenceWorks, Zotero, Mendeley. So anything is fine. Yeah. The reason I'm focusing in today's lecture, also I'll show some demo using EndNote, because EndNote, I use it quite a lot. Also, Swinburne has a license. I don't have to purchase the software. Yeah. but other options are also fine as well. And then we call it scheme, scan, scheme, and comprehend the literature. And this is the like part where you actually conduct quite a lot, reading and taking notes. And NVivo software is actually there. So this part, when you have downloaded all the references, all the like say the key references for your lit review, so the EndNote comes and NVivo comes here. So EndNote is for managing the references, but when you start analyzing, there you need NVivo. So what is also we are going to show in today's class. But my question is that some of you could say, okay, do I always need NVivo? No, you don't need NVivo actually. You could use Microsoft Excel to try something out. And people already have done wonderful, lit review without the NVivo. But there are some advantages I'll show here. Why should we use NVivo actually? Yeah. The last part is you write your review. And as most of you know that one, this is similar to research paper. You write introduction, method, and you write the results, or we call themes, discussion, and conclusion. These are like typical, PhD thesis or typical research paper, what we see in our day-to-day life. So just to compare actually, when we talk about the traditional review, what I said before, and the systematic review, the traditional review, no defined method, you just, select articles based on your preferences. But in systematic reviews, prescribed rigorous method. And one of the things as a practitioner of science, we want to reproduce things. Somebody has done something in a science, we want to check whether some results have been done rigorously or not, whether I can replicate or reproduce the same results. So that's why systematic review is a review where you can reproduce the results. And in traditional review is flexible, as I said before, and the systematic review is more transparent and replicable. And traditional review could be a bit more objective, and systematic review actually systematic, less objectivity. And what I said before, that most of the PhD students are alone, so they will be doing their task independently. So one researcher is fine, but for systematic review, you need 2 people. But you might ask me questions, okay, as a PhD student, how can I conduct a systematic review? Yes, it's possible, because your supervisor could be your second reviewer, like who will be working with you, because once you write a paper, your supervisor also get credit. So he or she is also the author most of the time. So in some disciplines, it's very common. So then he or she actually works with you to filter those literature and trying to co-write with you as well. So that's what I've been doing with my students also in the health sciences people. They do quite a lot. So that's how we can conduct a bigger review with the help of another researcher. Usually you need at least 2 people to conduct such a research. So I'll move faster so that I can show the demo. So now what we need for the analysis process. So imagine that we have research questions. We collected the data from the electronic databases. So now we need NVivo, as I said before. And then from the NVivo, we have to transfer the data to, for EndNote, transfer the data to NVivo. So, or we can directly transfer the data to NVivo. I'll show it in today's demo. And then usually I always maintain an Excel sheet, a spreadsheet. I'll let you know why, because let's say you have 30 articles to review. So it's always good to actually have a kind of summary of those articles somewhere. And from your NVivo software, you can also export Excel spreadsheet, which I will show you in today's demo actually. That's the objective of using NVivo, because NVivo works quite well with EndNote and spreadsheet as well. So anything you produce in NVivo, you can export those files as an spreadsheet Excel file, which is good for you to utilize in your thesis. So now the question is, what is NVivo actually? So the NVivo is the kind of qualitative data analysis software. So you might say, okay, is this the only one? No, there are a lot of other software actually, which you can utilize, MaxQDA. There are other even expensive software than NVivo. You could do lots of, other analysis using those software. But the question is again, why are we talking about NVivo here? So similar to what I said before, NVivo is licensed to Swinburne, so we can utilize it without paying anything. And this is actually reasonably good software, which you could utilize for analyzing the data. And I've been using it for the last 5-6 years, and my students have been using it. And we produced a couple of journal articles while analyzing the data using NVivo, which is we are proud of. And we feel this is actually easy to learn for the students, especially for the PhD students. I know there's a learning curve, but I think if you spend, a couple of days, you can easily learn the software. So what I said also before, that NVivo is a software, but it does not do anything for you in terms of intellectual thinking. That's very important to know. So even if you have used any other software like SPSS, see, SPSS, before using SPSS, you need to know exactly what SPSS can do for me. So you need to have an understanding, how should I analyze the data using SPSS? That's very important. Similar to SPSS, same thing with NVivo actually. So for the NVivo, you need to know, what can I do with NVivo actually? So you can run a query in NVivo, I'll show it later on. But if you don't know exactly what is the value of running the query, then it is like pointless. Yeah. So it can do some task for you, but it can't make any decision for you actually. So decision means that with NVivo, pretty much you can do anything. Anything means you can make any node, you can run any query, you can create framework metrics. I'll demonstrate everything in today's lecture. Don't worry if you don't know. But what it means that you need to know your the framework for analysis. That's important. Yeah. Sometimes software is a bit dumb because they don't know exactly how you have to do it. So software can produce anything, but if you don't know how to interpret, then it is pointless, I would say. So my point is here that NVivo is a software which helps you to analyze data, but the most importantly, it helps you to organize the data so that you can present it in your thesis. So if you use false type of information in the NVivo doesn't know it actually. You can say a particular node, you can point that out. A node is like, say, for author 1, or like, say, my interview 1. If you say interview 5, NVivo doesn't know it's interview 1 or 5. So you have to take the decision and you have to create your analysis framework before you start using NVivo. Yeah. And to summarize, I would say that you can get a lot if you use only spreadsheet, Excel sheet to analyze your data is like more laborious. But if you use NVivo, it does a lot of things for you actually. So that's why it's very easier, and you can edit anytime. It is very flexible. You can import any kind of sources. You can import from your interview data, in audio data. You can input if you say you have taken some images from your field study, you can import all the images and you can analyze it here. So this is one, like, say, platform, but it is capable of analyzing any type of data actually. And these days also you can do transcription services with NVivo. So now it has a wide service, as it was a bit limited before. Now it's quite wide, I would say. So 2 things to remember before I start my demo. One thing, what I always say, that NVivo is qualitative data analysis software. But then if you do lit review, so this is the kind of qualitative data that you are bringing there. Let's say you text data. In the lit review, what do? You have PDF files and you import those files in your NVivo library actually, or in NVivo workplace. Yeah. So that is very important. But that also depends on how you extract the data from your databases. The first task, you do it from your electronic databases. You have to extract the file and import it to EndNote. Yeah. And from the EndNote, you have to transfer those files to your NVivo. Yeah. So that's why it's very important that you use EndNote if you would like to follow today's demo, because these are related to the EndNote and NVivo. However, it can easily be done using other platforms. Yeah. So one thing to remember, that whenever you download some paper from online, so most of the time these papers could easily be read by the PDF reader, and sometimes those could be saved as an image file. So what you need to remember, whenever you transfer anything from electronic databases to NVivo, those should be readable, which means that you will see that this is not saved as an image. If it is an image file, then you need to convert the image file maybe in a Word document or the OCR, then you have to, so that it can be easily read by the NVivo software. So NVivo cannot read image file actually. So if the text is saved as an image, NVivo cannot read it actually. Yeah. So that's what you need to remember always. But the good point is here, most of the files you download from electronic databases, those are actually fine. Only few cases, very, very old, research papers are sometimes, saved as an image. So you need some other techniques to, import them. So I won't be going there too much, but these are easy. If you can just Google it, how to convert an image into a readable format, that will be fine. So now the second part is XML file. Why extensible markup languages? Why do we need that one? In the XML file from the electronic databases, all the metadata that you have, author name, year, and all other metadata, those are exported. Plus your PDF file is also exported if it is already there, and all those export will go to actually NVivo. So from the EndNote, what do you have? I'll show it after this slide. So from the EndNote, you have to export everything as an XML file, and that XML file should be imported to NVivo. That's one approach, I would say. The other approach, I would say that you can just export PDF files. Maybe you could say, okay, I don't need metadata for my lit review. I'll just import the PDF file. You can just copy the import PDF file and import it to your NVivo software, and then it's done. So the important part is that you need to extract all your PDF if you cannot set it up correctly, which means that the XML file should be kept in the same EndNote folder where your PDF files are in your computer. Yeah. So now this is time for me to demonstrate. So these are the things I'm going to demonstrate today actually. So mostly I'll be talking about the coding data, creating cases, and some auto coding, which is a good feature. And then some sort of query you can conduct using NVivo, especially word frequency, text search, matrix coding. And the good thing what I like is the framework matrix, which is a feature actually is good for everyone. If you are analyzing a large amount of data, especially from the PDF file, it can summarize quite a lot, and everything you can export once you are done with the NVivo, you can export as a spreadsheet later on, which you could utilize for your thesis. Yeah. So I'll switch back to my other window here. I'll stop sharing it. I'll go back to the other window. Yeah. So let me share it here. I'll show you first the EndNote thing and then move back to the NVivo. So let me share it here. So I have prepared something, as I have only 1 hour to demonstrate everything. So I already, it's a kind of, cooking show. You prepare something beforehand. Yeah. So this is an EndNote file, and all the files are related to a particular project that I have been doing. It's called Loneliness and Tech, how technology might help people to reduce loneliness. So imagine that I have all the files here, which are downloaded from electronic databases, in multiple databases, in Google Scholar. Yeah. So what do we need? We need first to do this one. If you say file and export. So that's very important. You select all the files and you export it as, see that XML file actually here. Yeah. So you give a name and you export as an XML file. That's your first task to do. Got it? So why we do this one, as I said before, we are doing this one so that we could embed every data, every metadata which are related to this particular reference. For example, you could say here, so if you see the particular reference here, it has a couple of things. Yeah. See that these are metadata: title, author, volume, issue. All the metadata will be transferred to NVivo. Yeah. So some of you could say that, okay, I don't need those metadata actually. Then you need just the PDF files, keep somewhere on your computer, and you will transfer it to your NVivo. That's what I'm going to show now. Yeah. So this is the first task. If you say I'll be exporting directly from EndNote, then your EndNote file should be ready first, and then select all the files and export it as an XML. Yeah, that XML file you need to import. So let me unshare this one and I'll go back to my NVivo software. So this one, now I move back to my NVivo thing here. Okay, this is NVivo here. So let me share screen and NVivo file here. So one thing to remind you everyone, please listen carefully. I am a Mac user. Yeah, so I'm showing today this software from Windows Computer. There's a reason why I'm doing this one. The NVivo software comes for the Windows and Mac, but in Windows application, Windows version, there are some extra features which is not available in the Mac version. Yeah, so you might say why they've been doing it, because this is for the business policy, business purpose. They add more features into the software program, but depending on the number of requests, number of like, so they are, how many users are requesting those type of feature in that different forums, then they try to expand those, features. So the Windows version that I'm using, it has two features. What I will show in today's, lecture. The special feature is called framework matrix, which is not available actually in Mac version. And the other one is called auto summarization, auto coding, which is not available actually in the Mac version, which actually is quite good to try out. Yeah. So now I'll give you first a brief overview of what I have it here. So this is the latest version of the NVivo, but most of you might have NVivo 12. Yeah. So I like the NVivo 12 because the interface was a bit better, but I think I downloaded this one 2 days ago. The latest one, but latest one has a bit different, UI user interface. You might need some time to, learn all the new interface. Yeah, all the functions are similar, but some parts have been, restructured. Then even I have hard time to, learn and remember which functions are where in the interface. But I'll show you some of them here. So let's say the data files here. So these are the files you can see I imported. You see the PDF is linked. I imported from my EndNote file. Yeah. So I made it simpler. I did not import many. I only imported a couple of PDF files here. But I did import these things using XML file. So what happens? You can see here the externals here. The external files are those files. If you export from EndNote using XML. Some files which might not have, the correct PDF or no PDF at all. So those files will be in the externals automatically. You can change it later on, but they will automatically be placed in the externals. But only the PDF files, remember that we are going to analyze the data files, the PDF, the research papers. These are actually set into the internal files. And this is where we are going to analyze it. Yeah. The first task we are going to do, let's say you don't know exactly what those papers are in terms of the whole content, we could do some searching within the data, actually, within the data file. So that searching I'm going to show you here. Oops. So if you look at this part, let me do something here to give you a better view here. Yeah, so this is a bit different UI. So let me go there because one moment please. I'm doing something here, then you can see. So the first task in NVivo you have to do is explore your things. Similar to like, it's like common sense. Whenever you get any new paper and new things, you try to explore something, right? What are you going to explore? Maybe let's see what my data files contain. And then the first task I do is a text search. Yeah. So this is all our kind of query you are going to run. And the first task am I going to do? Let's see what can I get out of those, paper that I have downloaded. So as I know that my files are related to loneliness. Yeah. All the files related to loneliness studies. So I'm just trying to see how loneliness is occurring there. Yeah. So let me do some search here. So you can do quite a number of things. I'm not going to detail here. You can say talk, talking, speak. So you can use different synonyms. Whenever you are searching here, you can fix those things by moving the slider. So run the query, see what happens. If you run the query here. So now it's a no results. Why? Because I did not select anything to run the query here. Yeah. So what I need to do, I need to select some files. I'm selecting the files that I extracted with the PDF files. Remember, these are not your metadata. These are PDF files. I selected that one. Then I run the query here. See what happens. So now it does not get anything here. So let's see what I have to do it here. My computer is getting slow because these are large files. Let me do something. So let me choose a couple of them, maybe see what happens. With the word loneliness is not finding here. Let me run some query here. So, okay, let me check something in just one moment. I think explore and then create, sorry, explore here and run something from here first, and I can see what is out there. I'm checking here what things I have. 1 second. PDF, export. The query, I can check also here. What frequency query? So that what I did, I also try to check in my each of the paper that I have downloaded, what can I get out of this one? Yeah. So one of the things that I want to show here, so some of you might be interested in checking your overall data, what you have. So this data provides you some sort of summary. Let me use some bandwidth here. I use some bandwidth. Let me turn off my camera B. I think the computer is using too much memory here because we are on Zoom. Let me do it here. So yeah, it is still doing something. So you see here that what I have done here. So I selected a particular paper from my databases that I created locally in NVivo. Then I can see what things are happening within my data. Actually, it tells me exactly what things are happening. And I can create different types of maps here. And I can also cluster, like create some cluster. But the reason I'm not creating the cluster because I have select only one paper. But what you can get an overview of what does each paper contain here. So what I say the first task is like, the exploring what I have. I just ran a kind of, frequency of one of the files. But what I'm going to start with, let's say I can start with a matrix query coding. I can save everything here and let me close this one. So now when I say matrix query coding, why am I doing that one? So first of all, I want to create row and columns of my data that I have created, that I have, like say, coded so far. So before I go this one, you might say, okay, have you coded anything? So what I said, I did some coding here before. What I'm going to show it to you, everyone. Then I'll show you how that code would work. Say I created some dummy coding here, gap, ideas, idea 2. And you can see those number, which means I have done some coding. And from the coding, actually, of course, you can run what cloud, you can see what has been coded. If you click on this one, so there are 25, cases. And the first code is a 19 references, it has 33 references, which means I have done some coding. But I would like to see auto-coded themes here. What are auto-coded themes? This is a feature of NVivo, which I said in Windows version. And this has been done automatically by the software. But how have I done this one? If you go to the file here, then if you say you select a particular file, yeah, any of the file you are selecting here, then if there is a, in the file menu, you can say auto code here. You can say auto code and you can select as many files as you need. Let's say I'm selecting all my files here. And if I say auto code, it will automatically start coding things. Yeah. So the first task, what you want to know is like checking what data do you have. You can run some frequency queries. So it will give you an understanding what those things are. Then secondly, you could create some themes, auto-coded themes. Why do you need that? I'll show you now. But you could run this one, auto-coded themes. Then it will create the themes. It may take some time because there are a number of files here. So you have to be a bit patient what it does. So see that it is trying to create themes. Now, how does it know exactly what needs to be auto-coded? This is based on some algorithm. It says if you have some noun phrases, so based on that, it tries to code. Let's say in this particular example, it will do some coding based on loneliness, technology, support, those kind of things it will code, because they will get those phrases into those PDF files. Yeah. So yeah, so see that it has coded a number of things here. Have a look here. So for convenience, I would like to keep everything now, but you could say that, okay, maybe I don't like the word senior, or I don't need to code anything senior, or the computer policy, maybe I don't need policy. You can uncheck those things and you can do, say, finish this one. Yeah. So, but I'm not unchecking anything, just for you to show here, but you can be a bit more selective to say, okay, this computer helped me to auto code, but I'll only select a couple of them and save those things. Yeah. If I say finish here, then it will try to save those things in the coding, auto-coded themes. So you have to be a bit more patient, because a huge amount of data is trying to store, and then it will be kept in the coded themes. So the other thing you might say that, okay, it's fine that computer is coding for me, but can I do my own coding? Yes, I'll show you how to do the own coding. Then I'll go back to the matrix, because you need some sort of coding first, then you can create any matrix. So until it saves the data, I want to say the matrix is nothing. You create a kind of table. Let's say in your research paper, you create tables. On the left-hand side, you write down author names. The right-hand side, you can say, okay, what intervention, what things somebody has discovered, somebody has found out, what the outcomes are. Basically, you are creating some sort of tables out of that. Yeah. So that's what you can create automatically using NVivo. But otherwise, if you don't do NVivo, you have to do everything manually. Yeah. Still is saving this quite a number of papers we have included. So now see that auto-coded themes, what it gave actually. See the auto-coded themes, what I auto-coded here. It also gives me kind of, diagram, you could say what things are there, sunburst diagrams, you can create different types of visualizations out of that actually, which is good. And as I said before, you can actually select, different types of data. So I selected everything because that's why it's giving, too dense, diagram, but you might actually select different types of, like less number of, data to be included in the diagram actually. Yeah. So tree map and the sunburst map, you can actually do it here. And also you have a summary of like, coding summary, in which paper it is coded what. Yeah. So, and of course you can use different types of color to represent your data. Let's say you have 10 different papers and you want to analyze the data very meticulously using NVivo, then you can create different types of diagrams here. Show the references. So what we have checked about, we checked about the auto-coded themes, but also we can check about, check those files what we had here. Let me close this one, it will take in so much memory here. So I'll get back to this one actually. Okay, let me explain this one as well. So this is an auto-coded theme, what I said before. You saw the diagram, but now also you can create different types of actually metrics here. So that matrix also I'm going to create manually later on. I'll show you. Let's say these are all the papers that I have, but you might say that, okay, can I change this one? Yes, you can change this one. I'll show you how. So if you think of any kind of, table, in the table left-hand side, you have a kind of attribute. Yeah. So imagine that these 12 papers are the author names. Yeah, author name, and they are here, but you can rename those paper. And let's say paper 1, paper 2, paper 3. You can then say, okay, what can I get from each of the paper? But then you can see for each paper here, then you can see what has been coded. Yeah, which means that, see, these are attributes. So different attributes have been coded here. So this is automatically done for you, but you might say, okay, this might not be very effective for me, interesting for me. Then as I said before, you can manually choose which attribute you'd like to create. I'll show an example to everyone that you can understand. Yeah. And as I said before that, some of the things are quite cool for NVivo, especially for Windows version. One is this auto-coding matrix, auto-summarize matrix that you can create, which is quite great. Then you already have the insights rather than you are coding yourself manually each and every paper. Software does for us. The other thing that I said, that manual coding, yeah. Let me close this one to save the memory here. So manual coding, for example, let's say if you click something here, what can you say? Let's say I see the particular paper, the PDF paper, I have it here, but I want to do some coding out of the paper. Yeah. Let's say I can code a particular phrase or a particular paragraph. So remember this one. NVivo does not tell you exactly what and how to code. It's up to you. So if you know how to do coding, how to do qualitative coding, so you can pretty much decide what am I going to code? Am I going to code a paragraph? Am I going to code a particular word? Yeah. So in this case, let's say I have done this one. I can even do my mouse click, right mouse click, code selection, so code in NVivo. It says, yeah, it's coded. Or you can say like, you know, you can uncode here, yeah, and say code selection. And you can also do anything by using the mouse click. What happens? It will open like, yeah, it's taking some time. So what I said is up to you to decide what you would like to code, but anything you code, it will appear in your coding schema. Yeah. So let's say I selected this one and I want this part to be coded, maybe not auto-coded theme. Let's say my author here, first query, or the code, click here, and I can say maybe research gap, just an example here, yeah. Then code this selection as a gap. Also, you would like to know, okay, whether am I coding these particular papers, how much have I coded? So you can see the coding stripes here. So you can see, okay, what things have been coded here so far, you know, and this is actually kind of overview of seeing what have I coded. So to summarize it, it's up to you to decide what you are going to code. You can code a particular word, particular phrase, particular paragraph, and you can do auto coding. But if you do manual coding, you can just select this part and you can say coding. Yeah. So if you can say to bit more efficient, go to recent codes. So it will be, you know, sent to the recent codes. You know, say see research gap was my recent code. You can click it, and this one goes to my recent code. Then if you see the coding part here, so they see the research gap, so it will come to that point. See what are 2 instances I have coding here. Yeah, I've done the coding. So to code things manually, what I would say that you need to choose a particular paper, and then you code it, right? And if you do auto coding, you select all the paper and then you choose auto code here. So then you know how to code and how to manual code, how to auto code. And one thing also to remember before I show an example here, the cases. See, I have created cases here. How did I create cases? You need to choose the file and right button, and then you can say create as cases. Yeah, cases. So what is a case actually here? So to give an idea of case is a kind of record. If you look at any particular spreadsheet, yeah. So every row is a record, remember, yeah. You have done Excel before. So basically, when I am creating the case, see, these are my cases means it looks a bit haphazard here and there. Don't worry. But what it does? It is a bit unique ID. Yeah, I need unique ID so that whenever am I creating anything out of NVivo knows this is a unique thing. Yeah? So why do I need the cases? Let's have a look here. I'll show you 2 more things before I finish. And also I'm happy to answer any questions if you need any help with NVivo. So please contact me after this meeting. I'm happy to sit together with you and help you further. Don't worry, yeah, if you cannot get everything now. So what I want to say 2 things before I finish. One is matrix coding, what I said before. For the matrix coding, I need those cases. Let's say, where should I get those cases? So I can select items here. Let's say I want to know from these 3 papers. See, 3 papers would be my row, my spreadsheet row, for example, or table row. I selected it. And for the right-hand side, my selected items could be, let's say, what am I going to code? Let's say me auto-coded themes. I don't know if I get something or not because I didn't check everything in my data. So I'm just checking some of the things here, selecting things and see if anything is coming up. Yeah. So if you run the query here, see what it does. It does something. It created a table here for me. Why? Because I want to know in each of those articles that I have, what things have been coded. Let's say, what are the age group in those papers? Then you can get the age group here. How many times did APR? And also you can change this one, see, percentage, you can say column percentage, you can change things. See, something happening here. Also, I like this approach here as well. So you can create different types of graphs, out of the data that you have. Yeah, and you can pretty much change everything. So what it does, this is the beauty of NVivo. It does a lot of things for you actually. You can edit labels, anything you can do it actually out of that one. Yeah. So which means that the data that you had, you can also manually create the table. What I wanted to show it here actually, what you could not see in the previous auto-coded one. And the one final thing, which is also very interesting actually to say, to create here, framework matrix, which actually is very important for the elite review actually here. Let's say I give a name test 111 here. And the row, let's say I'm selecting the rows for my, let's say all the papers that I have here. I put the cases here, framework matrix. Yeah. And the selecting things, let's say what I have here, let me check what I metadata. Now see here, you can say in the column one, I select something. I'm a bit selective now here, what I'm going to choose. Maybe I choose something more interesting here, because it depends on what we have. All codes, no, let me check something here. Auto-coded themes, maybe I check something here to make more interesting. Adults, maybe assessment, characteristics. So family, functional, and I'm just randomly checking something here. So what happens that you need some sort of idea actually what you're doing it, but I'm doing it for the sake of demo. So I have done this one and see what happens. I'll explain what does that mean actually here. This is the beauty of NVivo. I like this one. Now have a look here first before I do anything, any magic. So this is my first paper, second paper, and on the column, actually I see the adults, and also I have other, column here, assessment, characteristics, something like that here. So what I created a spreadsheet here actually. Yeah. So a spreadsheet, what? In the spreadsheet left-hand side, all of my papers actually, see all of my paper names are there. And the column side is the attributes that I coded or auto-coded, yeah. But what is important here, you click your, keep your mouse, pointer cursor there, and then you click this one, auto-summarize. Something will happen depending on what data do you have. See, that's the beauty of what I have. So what does that mean? I am not summarizing the paper, or I have done manually. And this gives a kind of a spreadsheet which I can share with anyone, my supervisor, anyone actually here. Yeah. So in this spreadsheet also you can export it. Yeah. You can export framework matrix actually as a spreadsheet. See, you can export as a spreadsheet somewhere. Let's say on your computer, desktop, something like that. Yeah. What it does, it will give you a big spreadsheet with everything that you have coded with your author names, and also every attribute that you have done. So this is one of the beauty of NVivo, because otherwise you would be doing everything manually. But now you may ask me questions. Okay, some items might be empty. Some items might be empty here. Yes, you can say, okay, this item is empty. Why? Because we did not code anything for that item at that time when we did the coding. Also, maybe the auto summarize option did not code anything for you. But if you think, oh, there is something missing there, you can still type here. See the beauty of the NVivo software, which means that you can manually add things and exported it as a kind of spreadsheet, which is the kind of summary of your lit review that you can conduct, that you can do. Yeah. So it is exactly at 11 o'clock. Actually, I have more things to show, but I think I'm mindful of the time. But I'm happy to give further training if you need it. So, but I think I have to end it now. I would say, Caroline, what do you think?
Yeah, sure. If you want to go a little bit longer, you're most welcome to. It's up to everyone if what you've got on for your time, and if everyone else wants to catch up, or we could do another session down the track. What would you
Also, I
prefer?
would like to know some questions because I'm going a bit faster because everybody needs sort of understanding first, you know, maybe play with the software before they actually dive into this analysis process.
Great.
Yeah.
Any questions? I'll check if there's anything in the chat. Anyone have any questions? And that's lovely that you offered to chat to anyone afterwards or via email if there's anyone that has any challenges around NVivo. It's a big offer. So you're very brave. Yeah, we don't have a lot of support for NVivo in ASH at the moment, so we're working on that. So we really appreciate your time. Any questions? Anyone? Giuseppe says he'd like to follow up with the recording. Yeah, no problem. For sure. I just emailed the one from Carolyn last week. That'll be fine. I can process that tonight. That's fine. Thanks for the presentation. We're getting some great comments there. What else do we have? Cool. Excellent. People are saying thank you. Thank you. Okay. So if questions occur to you, you might want to have as Abdullah says, have a play with the program, and then you can access the program through the software application. If you have any trouble accessing it, just let myself or your relevant ADRT know, and we can talk you through it, or we can pass you on to IT to give you some assistance with that. Great. Terrific. Thank you so much. That looks terrific, Abdullah. I think you've been very clear. Great. So, well, then let's leave that there. And we can always schedule something further if Abdullah has time. Our next sessions, we're not having any training next week because it's a public holiday. I also have to get my Pfizer jab. So I'm going to put that in so everyone knows I'm under 50. That's the real reason I'm getting it. And so I may not be, I'm sure I'll be terrific on Monday, but it's a public holiday. So then training for the next lot of training will be on the 21st, that's set. So we can always, someone, Damiola says, could we have Abdullah come in for a part 2? So we could always arrange that sometime after June 21, whenever, if Abdullah's available at that time, maybe on leave. We can work it out. Sounds good. Terrific. Yeah. Awesome. Great. Okay. Well, let's leave it there. Give Abdullah a round of applause for progressing through what would normally be an hour-and-a-half presentation.
Nice.
Terrific. I realized I should have given you an hour and a half. What was I doing? Because I remember before we set this up, I thought, I should have done an hour and a half, but you wouldn't guess. It was terrific. Okay, awesome. All right, everyone, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much. Questions, do let Abdullah know. I popped up in the chat the sign-in sheet, but everyone can email me if they haven't had a chance to download that.
So, yeah, and also in the chat box, I would like to just share this Excel, what I downloaded. Yeah, because I didn't show it to you. This is the framework matrix that I created. You can see how the Excel would look like. Yeah.
Terrific. Great. I'm going to download that. All right. So I can, I'll email that around if anyone wants it who wasn't here. No problem. Just make sure I'm downloading that. Cool.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Great, fantastic. Okay, thanks. See ya.
Bye-bye, next time.
Yeah.